I know it's a hot and crowded room, so thanks very much everybody for their patience. I think what we all share, and we share with millions of people, both in Britain and across the world, is outrage at what has happened over the past month and what's happened for years to the Palestinians. So we're all agreed on that. We're probably all in this room agreed about the Tories. What a filthy bunch of public school educated, arrogant, self-serving millionaires telling us that we've got to cut back, that we've got to suffer because it's the only way to get the economy back. Well, now they claim the economy is back actually, but they haven't said austerity isn't necessary anymore. So we're probably all agreed on that. I would have thought most of you would probably agree that perhaps Ed Miliband isn't an alternative. On Gaza, on austerity, on anything really. He wants to hammer immigrants and say immigrants are to blame. He wants to say that Israel has got a right to exist and it's got a right to defend itself against a few rockets that get beaten back anyway and stone-throwing children. You name it, Miliband is not an alternative. And when it comes to the public sector pay strikes, Miliband's already told us that Labour are not going to increase, they're not going to change the public sector pay rise and pay freezes of 1%. They're going to keep to the public spending plans of the Tories. So perhaps, I don't know if everybody would agree, but I would have thought most of us would agree that really looking to Labour is no alternative. So really maybe what this summing up should be about is what is the alternative? What is the alternative for the people of Gaza, for the people in Britain who are suffering and queuing up for food banks in one of the richest countries in the world? There must be something else. Because you see, I think one thing that we can offer as a Socialist Workers' Party is that we both talk about what's wrong with the world and explain it, and we also say what you can do next. Go out and leaflet for the demonstration, march on Saturday, do something. You know, that's what we do. We're not there to pontificate from the sidelines. We're in the struggle every day because we believe we can make a difference in the here and now. It will make a difference if we win a boycott campaign against the companies. If we will win it so the government can't sell arms, those will make a difference. But in the long run, we also want more than that, don't we? We're not just against bad things, we're for some good things. We're for a different sort of society. We're against oppression, racism, sexism, homophobia, against war, against imperialism. We believe it's possible to have a sort of society, to have a social society, where those things will be history. Now, I know talking to people, they say, yeah, that'd be great. Come on, how are you going to get there? It's like a dream, it's utopia, it's not possible. But the key comes back to the questions of what people talked about Egypt and the struggle. Because actually, what the Egyptian revolution in particular, started with Tunisia, but Egyptian in particular is the biggest, most populist, it's got the biggest working class in it. What it showed to us, that a dictator who had been in power for decades, who was going to happily give that dictatorship over to his son, and that would have given over to his son, and the Western powers backed him and armed him. They didn't say anything about torture and repression in Egypt until the revolution happened. They were able to bring Mubarak down. How? Mass protests on the streets and the working class striking. The workers were organised. It was critical. Now, the fact that they are now in retreat and the ruling class is back in the driving seat. Revolution is a process. It's not just an event. It's not going to be overnight. We're suddenly going to have socialism. Revolutions can also involve retreats and defeats as well as advances, and they can be processes that can take years to play out. The revolutions in the Middle East still have a time to play out. It's not all over. The agents of change, the ordinary human beings that came on the street, the things they wanted, the dreams they wanted, have not been fulfilled. The basic demands of the revolution. And for me, it's not just about how they can change things there, where they have dictatorships. It's also how we can change things here, even though we have like a democracy. I mean, but is it great? Nobody voted for a coalition government between the Tories and the Liberal Democrats to jointly impose austerity, put up student tuition fees, etc. Nobody voted for them, but we got them for 5 long years. And when we vote again, are we going to get something substantially different? I'll be voting for something different. But in the sense of how do you get real change, it's when the mass of ordinary people actually struggle together. And this is what we have to talk about, because I think, I absolutely defend the right of the Palestinians to fight back, for Hamas to chuck rockets against a hugely militarized state that is trying to repress them. But in the end, if you're fighting it just as a military battle, Israel is always going to win, because they're backed by the Americans in Britain. They're going to, they're always going to have more military might. There has to be another way. And because, as I said in the talk, the way that the Palestinians have been fragmented, have been scattered from their country, they are not organised collectively. It's impossible for them to do that. That's why, not just out of solidarity, it's why it's critical for a vision of a new way of living in the Middle East, that the revolutions are where the power lies. You don't always have power where you most feel and experience your oppression. It can be that you have to be part of that collective, and I think that goes for both in the Middle East and in this country. And so therefore, I think when we talk about the possibility of it being a tipping point in Britain, I absolutely agree. And I want to see something like the mass movement that made the Tories back off on the poll tax, or a mass movement of the Iraq war. We didn't stop them going into Iraq, but we stopped them bombing Iran, we stopped them bombing Syria, and I don't think at the moment the government could win us bombing anywhere right now, because there's no appetite for war in Britain, and that's partly, we did that. People like us and millions of others who protested against the war created a mood where the government can't just get away with saying it's humanitarian, because people say, no, you're doing it for imperialism. And so we know we can make a difference. And I think it's possible. People have talked about it being the new South Africa. I think in many ways there is that sense of a young generation seeing it. When I was at college 30 years ago, people went to kibbutzes. People I knew, young students, because kibbutzes in Israel were seen as a bit lefty and a bit cool, because they were sort of alternate way of living. This was rubbish, it was propaganda. You will not hear of that on a student campus now, because actually it'll be for Palestine. There'll be people saying that it's wrong, Zionism is wrong. This is a big change that's gone on. So I do think we are potentially at a tipping point in terms of support from outside, and I think also because in the last 4 years we've seen revolutions in the region, a tipping point in terms of where the power really lies. Because really we're not going to win for Palestine just out of solidarity outside, though it's a critical part of it, because our governments hold up Israel, but it's also going to be in the heart of the region, of which our ruling class also plays a critical role, where the masses of ordinary people have their own agency and they have proved themselves. If I was doing this meeting 10 years ago, I'd be talking about revolutions of the Arab masses are the key for liberation of the Palestinians, but it wouldn't be something that people maybe would believe was possible. We've seen it in our lifetimes. They're still playing out that they have got the power. Some of the most, people who are seen as the pawns of imperialism, aren't they? The Arab masses are seen as people that just have things done to them, have actually shown that they can do things back. So therefore I think for us, in the next weeks and days, it is boycott campaigns, it is marching, it is bringing the struggles together. But also, critically, I think, we have to be organised. In Britain today, somebody said there's so many different struggles, and I agree with that. We have to be united, and that's what we do in the SWP. What we say is actually things aren't separate little struggles. One night a campaign for this, another night a campaign. We bring them together. And I'll tell you what, the ruling class are organised. Sometimes they squabble amongst themselves, like, when a Tory minister resigns. But in the end, they all agree on one thing: they want to make us pay. And actually that means we have to be organised, because every time there's been revolutions of ordinary people historically, and the same goes for Egypt, what's been critical is not the courage, the inspiration, the imagination of the mass of ordinary people. It's been the political leadership of the masses, of the revolutions, of the struggles. And for me, we want political leadership with a memory of past struggles, with ideas for how to go forward, with a political understanding of the way forward, and also an understanding how some political leaders sell you out. That's what we're trying to offer in the SWP. And therefore, to be organised, to be part of something, to be organised as a collective, really maximises our strength. So I urge anybody here who's not yet in the SWP, you'll see us everywhere. We're selling our paper, we've got our stalls out, because we're fighting every day for change in the here and now. But I tell you what, we're fighting for a lot more of that, a vision of a socialist society where actually future generations will not have to live through another anti-war movement, another anti-fascist movement, another movement against cuts and austerity, where we live in a different sort of world. So I hope you'll join us tonight, join the SWP and be part of the struggle. Thank you.